This week on the WriterCon podcast,
I think we need to just be a little bit kinder to ourselves. So just really enjoy the process.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files book series.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. And hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us today. We are, all three of us, I think, recently back from big travel expeditions. Lara and I were in New York recently. And Jesse, you just got back from the Star Trek cruise, right?
That is correct.
Did you have a decent time?
I did have a decent time. I did happen to catch COVID on the way home. So that's been a fun week. Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I got some Paxlovid on Thursday, feeling better now. I will say the energy to get ready for this recording took a lot out of me. I'm like, I am more tired than I thought I was. But
we'll talk quickly.
Yes.
I understand.
But you're feeling all right now?
Oh, yeah. The cruise was great. Each cruise has a captain, right? Like the sort of who they think the biggest celebrity Star Trek wise on the cruises. Yeah, and it was Kate Mulgrew for this year because it was a Voyager anniversary year, and she's always great. She's just like such an honest, earnest, deep person. Like anytime you get to hear her talk is fantastic. So,
more importantly for this podcast, when's she going to write her book?
I think she was talking about that. So she's working on it.
Possibly every star on that book. On that boat, maybe working on a memoir.
That's true. That's true. Yes,
we know there's an audience.
Seriously, the actress who plays Uhura on Strange New Worlds, like she's only 25 years old and she's already lived like a full life of doing shows and whatnot. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So
impressive.
Yes.
Lara, we of course were on New York on a research/fun visit. What was your favorite part?
I hate picking favorites. Okay.
Three favorite.
I get three. Okay, I can do three. So while you were in the library doing your research, I went to the Guggenheim Museum, and that was amazing. I had a really good time there and saw some fantastic artwork and learned some art history. So that was wonderful. And of course, we had pizza at an old historic
right that place
establishment.
Columbia's campus.
That one of our former podcast interviewees, Thomas invited us,
Great
and so
writer.
we got to meet him in real life, which was fabulous. And then, of course, all of the shows. That's my third thing. All of the shows that we saw, I'm going to lump them all together. I just loved it. We had such a good time.
I thought the trip to Tiffany's would at least make the top three, but that's just my own selfish.
There's
very nice.
No, very fun. There's my new acquisition,
which goes for your. Well, that you're not wearing. You're wearing another Tiffany thing, although that one's like before we were even married, right?
Yes, this
Around
one
your
was.
Neck. It's a classic now.
It is vintage now. They don't make them anymore. That was your first Christmas present to me ever. Yes.
Before
I even knew what a little blue box meant.
Okay, Jesse, no pressure, but what was your first present to Michelle?
It was actually I wrote not a poem. What is it called where you do a thing where you use the first letter of a thing to start a line? Yes, I made Michelle one of those. So,
that's actually better.
Luckily, I'm very lucky that she does not care for diamonds. So my gift budget is lower than most, and I am blessed.
Well, this one's not a diamond.
Yeah.
I will say I didn't much care for diamonds either, but Bill said, I don't care. I want everyone to know that you're spoke for. He wanted no misunderstanding on what that ring was.
It's clear.
That's true. All right. Our interview today is with Cynthia Pelayo. She is the Bram Stoker Award winning author of Forgotten Sisters and many other genre blending novels that incorporate fairy tale and mystery and horror elements. Esquire called her novel Loteria one of the best horror books of 2023. She's written numerous short stories too, and even a collection of poetry. Can't wait to talk to her about all that. But first, the news. News story number 1. Authors can now create AI-narrated audiobooks for free through the leading AI audio company, ElevenLabs, and they can be distributed everywhere. This is a big change for anybody who's involved in the audiobook business. They've launched a subsidiary company called 11 Reader Publishing. I'll put the link in the show notes. Authors can go there and create and sell these AI-narrated audiobooks, which I'll just say again, sound better than you think. Not a substitute for real people, but not horrible and free. And you can do it through their app, and it doesn't cost anything up front. They take their cut on the back end. They get $1.10 per listener. But when you think about what audiobooks cost, that's really not very much. And the big thing is you can distribute it anywhere. I mean, we already have Amazon can generate an AI narrated audiobook, but you can only sell it at Amazon. Google do the same thing, but you can only sell it Google Play. This one you can send anywhere. Even Spotify has announced that it's going to team up with them and accept these AI narrated audiobooks. And Findaway Voices, which we've mentioned several times as a great audiobook producer. Well, they're now owned by Spotify. So are you really surprised that they will also distribute those audiobooks? But here's a catch. Any audiobooks created with AI will be clearly marked as such. Lara, is this good news for the world of writing and writers?
So before I would hop into that, I would want to go to the site. I'd want to hear some samples.
Well, let's assume they're magnificent. Is it
if
a
they're
good
magnificent?
thing?
Yes, because those Amazon audiobook narrations that you're talking about are still in beta. That's not available to everyone. So that's kind of a flaw there. It's great for people who have access to it, but not everyone does. I mean, great if you want to use it.
Right.
I'll go look at it. I will go look at it and check it out. But as far as what they keep, I think it is less than it's less than what ACX takes. It seems like it could be something that could help independent authors.
Yeah, or small publishers. People
or small
who
publishers.
We're not trying to diss or eliminate human narrators,
right?
Some of whom are the best, but they're also expensive. And some people just can't afford that or don't want to share profits. Well, here's a workaround for that. Jesse, would you buy AI narrated audio? You listen to audiobooks, right?
I don't listen to audiobooks.
Podcasts?
Music?
What do you listen to?
Podcasts, yeah.
Okay.
I don't, mentally, it's better for me to read it than it is for me to listen to it.
Me too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, which is ironic considering the work I do. But other than taking money directly out of my pocket, I don't think I would listen to, if I was going to listen to an audiobook, and I have listened to some. I don't think I could put up with an AI narrator because I would be able to tell, and that might be because of the work I do. But I also think most people will probably pick up on it because it's not going to be perfect. It never is. And I also don't like that it's free. Like free things is one of the things where the money's coming from somewhere. So they're either, yes, they're getting money on the back end, but that means they're also probably using your book to help train whatever. And it's one of those, I worry about that. I'm going to
say an ACX, you don't pay them anything up front. ACX, when you log in and create that, it is free. They take their money for every book sale. So that's why I'm saying I'd want to go look at it. Like you say, I would like to look for some kind of fine print or some kind of catch. Like you're talking about, I'm with you. I'm like, if it's free, what do we think? But ACX was like that too. They just take a huge piece of it and you don't get a lot. And it's it's a little discouraging. We hear all the time about how audiobooks are exploding and blowing up, and you can make so much money from audiobooks. And I'm sure for some people that is true, but I've used ACX in the past, and discouraging and dismayed are good words there. It resulted in something, which is always better than nothing. Yeah. But even having a narrator who was willing to share royalties with me so that there was no upfront cost for either of us. Yeah, I felt disappointed with the results. And she's great. I like her, but
yeah. Now, Jesse, when you record audiobooks, you're usually recording for the author, right? An author who wants to read their own book. And, anybody with that big an ego, they're still going to read their own books, right? And yes, I'm talking about you, Barry, out in Portugal. I hope you're listening to this. That's Barry Friedman, frequent guest on this podcast.
He seems to be having fun. So,
yeah, but I miss him.
I know.
Okay, news story number.
Go ahead. Have you seen like the cost of audiobooks through that? Because that's another thing I hear from some people, that if you don't have a subscription service to Audible or something like that, that audiobooks are actually kind of expensive, and some people shy away from them for that reason. So if it made the audiobook cost less, perhaps that would open additional doors and get more people listening to them.
And like, this would be an interesting question for our listeners. Like, everyone I know who's a big audiobook listener has an Audible subscription.
Yeah.
They don't buy the audiobooks.
Correct.
And, so that means, like, would they listen to more? Would they, what would they pay for it if it wasn't in the Audible subscription? So that would be
like
interesting to find out. Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I got to point out, when I did the audiobooks for all of those books on writing, the Red Sneaker books, story structure and creating character and all those. Yeah. I did the audiobooks, and they sold like crazy in the first years, because I think they're relatively short.
Yeah.
And so the price was lower. So price really does matter to people. Okay, news story number 2. Amazon Kindle is removing the download option via USB. If you use any kind of Kindle device, you may have seen this announcement, because it went into effect on February 26th.
Helpful.
Users will no longer be able to download purchased ebooks onto your computer via USB, which sometimes people would do to have a backup copy if they're going to be someplace when they're not, connected to Wi-Fi, or for various other reasons. Some people just like it, I think, to get out of the store, or because sometimes files are updated. The author makes a minor change, and then it goes everywhere, except not if you've already saved a copy to your computer, which may be why Amazon's doing it. I don't know. They don't explain themselves. They just announce changes. It doesn't affect users' ability to manually copy documents to their Kindles using the Send To feature, but you're not going to be able to USB it down to your computer. Lara, what's the motive here?
I'm not sure I even fully understand. I mean, I always load up on books before we travel so that I have something to read on the airport.
On your iPad.
You're not saying,
right?
Yes,
You've got
on
them
my
on
iPad.
Your iPad.
Yes.
Yeah. But you used to be able to download them to a computer, and now you can't.
I've never done that. So since I'm unaffected, I assume that they're trying to stop piracy, or at least that's their argument, that they're probably, but I don't really know.
And it does point out that when you buy an ebook, you're not actually buying an ebook. You're licensing the rights to read it.
That's right.
Which is a big difference. Jesse, have any thoughts on this?
Well, I do. As someone who has pirated ebooks before, this is clearly the
FBI is not listening.
Yeah. FBI, don't come after. Listen, if it makes you feel any better, it was like the Wheel of Time books, which, are long. And
you probably need 3 computers to hold all of those.
Yeah. It's funny how small ebook size books are, even for ginormous books. It's still like, a couple 100 kilobytes, and that's it. This goes to the fact that these companies think we don't own the things we buy, and that's very upsetting and annoying. Like we're not licensed. That's not what we agreed to. That's not how our capitalistic system normally works. And I don't like it.
Correct. Right. I think you're right about that. Okay.
It sounds like I shall be unaffected. So I'm not up in arms.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt me now.
Well, I mean, like, for example, like,
sorry,
now,
Jesse.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Well, like, I'm thinking of like moving to a Kobo reader instead of a Kindle. And will I be able to get the books that I bought, right? And then, use Calibri, which is a free open source program. It's great for like managing ebooks. Will I be able to use that to convert it into the format that, a Kobo could use? Or am I going to have to rebuy everything, which really changes my decision and is also a little, that's very Monopoly-esque of Amazon to do. So,
but if you bought something for a Nook, it would likewise be specific to the Nook. When did Kobo announce they were going to have a reader? How new is that?
Oh, the Kobo reader's been around for a while.
For a while?
Yeah. You can now actually buy them on Amazon. It's been a long problem where you couldn't get them on Amazon before because Amazon didn't want to sell it.
Anything on Amazon.
Gotcha.
Yes. Except competitors to Amazon products most of the time.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, people who are specific to Nook can only get the Nook. Yep. And so now it sounds like the Kobo is going to be specific to Kobo and you're going to have to figure out where you want them.
Every other e-reader other than Amazon uses the same format, the EPUB format. Amazon's the only one that has their own modified format.
But that's going out. They've announced that in March, they're no longer going to accept .mobi files, what we used to call Mobi files.
Mobi is
their own. Not only are they not going to accept it, if you've done it in the past, which, at one point you were required to do by Amazon, but you're going to have to replace all those files now with EPUBs.
Oh boy.
But I've been uploading Kindle EPUB files for a while now because we heard this was coming.
Yeah.
Is it still different? Is it a different EPUB file?
Yeah, well, as far as I know, they have their own format, which is like
That's what I think.
something, which
maybe isn't. It might still be unique.
Yeah.
Well, we will find out. That'll be the top story in about a week. So stay tuned. In the meantime, today in Craft Corner, we have longtime WriterCon friend and sponsor Desiree Duffy of Black Chateau and Books That Make You. Her topic is getting editorial book reviews, which can be challenging but very important. So take it away, Desiree.
Craft Corner.
There are three main types of book reviews: editorial, which we covered in part 1, endorsements, which we're covering now in part 2, as well as consumer types of reviews. We'll talk about those later. Right now, let's dive into author endorsements, influencers, and expert types of book reviews. These are solicited endorsements and reviews from respected figures, and that includes best-selling authors or other authors, high-profile influencers or celebrities, experts or academic peers. The purpose of these types of reviews is to leverage name recognition and authority to build your credibility. You lean on their brand a little bit to help uplift yours. You align the book with respected individuals or even niche influencers who resonate with your target audience because you might share a target audience. Let's kind of parse that out just a little bit more. When it comes to author endorsements, your publisher may have similar authors that they will reach out to. There might not be too much for you to do if you're with a traditional publisher because they know other authors who can blurb or give a recommendation about your book. If you're an indie author or self-published, maybe with a small press or a hybrid press, and they don't necessarily have those connections, well, you can use your connections as an author with similar authors. You can even swap endorsements with one another. When it comes to influencers or celebrities, let's parse that down just a little bit further. You can identify these influencers who are on social media, bookstagrammers, for example, and book talk creators, or even bloggers. Look for them in your genre. As an author, you should be doing this months, even years before your book is out. You should be part of the community that is already out there talking about the type of book that you are writing. You can reach out to these types of influencers with personalized pitches. Offer them free copies or an ARC of your book. Swag, if you got any merch or anything, give them some freebies. And don't be surprised, especially if they have large followings, if they're looking for compensation as well. Now, if they're more of a celebrity or maybe a journalist with a premium platform, think New York Times or LA Times, or an athlete, for example. In those cases, you probably want to find out who represents them, their publicist or their agent, or even their publisher, to make that formal request. When it comes to experts or academic reviews, use your network of professionals in your niche. Chances are you know people already. This is especially true in nonfiction books or anything that might be in the world of academia. You're going to know who to talk to, probably more so than your publisher does. Reach out to these folks. You can do anything from that formal request that we just talked about, or a letter, to a direct message, an email. And if you know them well enough, heck, just give them a call or text them yourself. The benefits of these types of endorsement reviews is that they can go on the back cover of your book, in press releases, in ads. Those people have name recognition, and you're going to be able to utilize that. Influencers create oftentimes a visual buzz that goes along with your book. Think of Instagram aesthetics and TikTok videos. Influencer and celebrities can reach their audience, and that creates word of mouth buzz that oftentimes can go beyond what an author or a publisher's reach can accomplish. These types of reviews also have the most potential to go viral. A big thank you goes out to William Bernhardt and the team for making me a part of Craft Corner.
Thank you so much, Desiree. Now, let's talk to Cynthia Pelayo. Cynthia Pelayo, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm glad you could be here. All right, traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think we need to just be a little bit kinder to ourselves. So just really enjoy the process. It's sometimes I think we're a little overwhelmed with the overabundance of advice. And it's nice just to kind of step back and remember why we're doing it. We really enjoy it. And when you find that point of pure joy, the writing will come so much easier.
I feel that it's deadlines that always kill the joy for me, right? It's like, I've got to get this done. And how did you get interested in writing books?
So I was a journalist back in the 90s and early 2000s. And, journalism is its entire own field. And I left it because I was working in marketing research and I still wanted to continue writing. And I pursued Masters of Fine Arts in Writing. I experimented with short story form, and it was there that I started developing longer length work. Mm-hmm. And I've been in love with it since then.
Mm-hmm. Apologies to anybody that I'm maligning, but I think you are the first guest we've ever had who is an actual Bram Stoker Award winner, which is pretty cool. Just for the uninitiated, that is the award in the world of horror. Yes. That must have been a big deal. How'd you feel when you found out about that?
I had to be practically carried to the stage by my friend. He walked around, picked me up out of my seat, and helped direct me to the stage because I could not believe it. It was shocking and an honor, and I shook the entire time.
That's fantastic. And which book was that for?
This was for a book of poetry titled Crime Scene, where I wrote not a poem, like a novel in verse about following one detective across the life of crime. And I did it as a long poem. A series.
Crime
that is
scene.
Fascinating.
I want that. Yeah. I'm checking that out tonight.
Excellent. I'll borrow it.
Okay.
Well, tell us about your new book, Vanishing Daughters.
So
now that we're intrigued by your crime scene.
Vanishing Daughters follows Briar Rose Thorne, who returns home after her mother died. Her mother left their ancestral home to her. It's a crumbling mansion on Chicago's South Side. The family made their wealth in radios, but radios aren't really the thing we go turn to anymore. And so she's overwhelmed with grief, overwhelmed with the maintenance of this massive property. And as she's a journalist. And so as she starts researching, her next article, she stumbled upon a series of connected, unsolved murders of women in the neighborhood. And she determines that there's likely a serial killer operating, and she gets too close to the serial killer, and he sets his sights on her.
Oh, ooh, very good. Well, your work has been described as genre blending. Was that intentional? And what do you think people mean when they describe it that way?
I don't intentionally set out to say I'm going to create a piece of work that leans detective and mystery or whatnot. I just start writing, and I noticed that certain elements would just balance out a little bit further. So most of my works are fairy tale adaptations. So Vanishing Daughters deals heavily with the fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty, and in it, the serial killer is obsessed with putting women to sleep. And then I think horror is sort of like the underlying foundation that I have, but from there I build upon it, because some of my major influences were like Agatha Christie and even Sir Conan Doyle. And so I think for me, mystery just makes sense, and it pairs really well with horror, as well as detective fiction and the procedural.
So in Vanishing Daughters, you talked about serial killers and things we associate with thrillers or mystery crime novels, but I think there's also some horror. What do you call it?
What do I call it? The publisher calls it a thriller.
Oh, really? Okay.
I will admit that I think most of my novels are just genre blending. They're a little bit, they sort of do defy genre. They have fantastical elements to them, a little bit of supernatural. So they're not based in realism. Might be, reading something and you feel like it's based in reality, and then a ghost will appear.
I love it. That sounds really good to me.
I'm not sure how many thrillers I've ever read that I really thought were credible, but they don't always have ghosts.
Exactly. So I usually caution the mystery reader or traditional thriller reader that my works are supernatural thriller or supernatural mystery.
That's really intriguing.
I'm in. Yeah. It sounds really good.
And you're not only, mixing and matching and messing around with genres, you're also dealing with different literary forms. Like you've already said, you've written short stories, you've written poetry or verse, you've written novels. How do you decide? You get that great idea. How do you decide what kind of project it's going to be?
Oh, so I think right now, I think a lot of the short story projects come to me. Well, I'll be invited to a lot of projects. But generally with my novels, those need to be very multi-layered. So a short story will just be one idea. As opposed to a novel, I'll have multiple themes involved. So in Vanishing Daughters, there's the theme of grief. Then there's also a lot about Chicago's history with being a home to multiple serial killers, which is very strange. John Wayne Gacy, H.H. Holmes. And then there's also this concept of a true crime element where nearly 51 or over 51 women have been murdered in the Chicagoland area, which is true. And it seems like a serial killer is at play. So I will weave in multiple things and see if they complement one another. And then that will be a novel.
Interesting. And before we move on, I just got to ask, because Lara and I work with writers all the time, and many are writing short stories, and then they ask, and where do I send it? And I'm like, yeah, that's tough. How do you get your short stories published?
So those, it depends, because it's true. The market for short stories is very slim. There are a lot of online magazines still that will publish short stories, and it's important to, be involved in writing communities. There's different websites now that will give like the timelines and be aware of like submission deadlines. There's also calls for anthologies where that's a great place. If you can get your short story placed in an anthology, I would really recommend that, especially for like new writers, because that's an opportunity to have your work showcased with established authors alongside. And that would be a great opportunity to get more eyes on your work.
Good advice.
That's excellent advice. How do you start a new project? You've talked about how you consider your themes and what elements you want to include, but do you outline, take notes? Would you call yourself a pantser or a planner?
I am struggling right now with my next project, which is interesting. I think it is true. For some writers say that every project, it's a little bit different. I am an outliner, and I love taking copious amounts of notes. So I love just stocking up on notebooks when I'm going to start writing a new project. And I love doing research. I love, going to coffee shops and listening in on conversations that might kind of be able to weave in to my story somehow. But I typically will write out my outline in Excel. It just makes sense for me because there's different fields. And so I will break the novel down chapter by chapter. So usually I write about 35-ish chapters. So I tend to know like the midpoint's going to be in the middle of the novel. And then from there, I'm able to kind of plot out where the beats will fall. I usually write my novels more based on like a traditional 3-act structure. So it's easier to map that out.
Well, I just got to ask, what are in the different cells or the columns in your Excel spreadsheet? Is it like chapter, plot, character, or what?
Yeah. So I'm going to open one of mine that I was actually looking at.
I used an Excel sheet once. I tried that.
It is it's a little overwhelming, but I call it my map, novel map. So what I will have like on one column, it's like the chapters. And then over on the other tabs, I will have like, so for example, have you heard of Save the Cat?
Yes. Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
So I will have a series of columns. So I have the Save the Cat. And for example, I have a column there that says Save the Cat. Opening image generally happens between 0 to 1%. And so then I would know, right, chapter 1, I'm going to have my opening image around there. But then next to Save the Cat, I also have 2 other comparable columns, a horror beat sheet and then a mystery beat sheet. So in the mystery beat sheet column, I have it written dramatic opening, an incident that sets the story into motion. That's usually what within a mystery, something's happening. We're in there. And then with the horror beat sheet column, that says the world is not what it seems. And then across that, I will have like the character names, history. I'll have something written down in history so that I can start pinning and understanding. It sounds really complicated and it's difficult to say.
That's all right.
That way I know, all right, in chapter 1, this is what I'm going to target. I'm targeting an opening sequence that sets things in motion. That will make it seem like everything isn't what it seems. And it will have that opening image from Save the Cat. And then I will list out who are the characters within that chapter. So it's overwhelming. It doesn't work for everyone. But but you can do an outline in different ways. You can just have an outline in Word. I've told people who don't like outlining, think of it as even developing something that's a guidepost. You don't have to be really detailed, because the fun is sometimes just discovering. You can just write down like one sentence or a few words so that you know these certain things are happening in this chapter, and you can continue building from there.
Mm-hmm. You are very much a planner. I like that. And I might revisit the Excel sheet I used. I found it helpful to a point, and then I did get kind of overwhelmed and reverted back to my just line by line outline that I worked from. But I really like that. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And every novel is different. So whatever worked for one novel, I'm seeing now what I'm used to work for my previous novels isn't quite working for this novel. So I'm tweaking my
Good advice. So now can you describe your daily writing process? So that gets you started. And then how do you approach the work each day to get it finished?
So I'm a mom of two.
Yes. Nice.
It really, my days are chaotic. For any parents out there caring for loved ones. So I generally, in the morning, I would try to wake up before everyone, get a few key things done, shuffle everyone off to school. And then when I come home, I have a nice block of time, and that's my time to really write. And I am a big proponent of just get the words down, however messy they look, because you can't edit what you don't have. So I just
absolutely.
And there'll be typos and things that don't make sense, and I'll insert notes, and it's just a jumbled mess. And then I get everybody back home. We get settled. And then my evening is sort of my opportunity to plan what I'm going to do tomorrow. So like I'll look at my outline, and then I kind of like re-pull the levers and tweak things around, because just because you're outlining, that doesn't mean that that's set in stone. You can keep tweaking things along. So my days are a little chaotic, but I get the writing done. However, I need to get it done.
And you are getting it done, and you've been doing it for a while now. What are some of the lessons you've learned along the way about writing or publishing, or something you didn't know when you started, but is apparent to you now?
Oh gosh, there's just so much. It's just an overwhelming industry, the business aspect of it all. And I think what I wish I knew then is that you have to separate both of them in your mind. There is one component, which is the business, and you have no control over that. And then there's the other component, which is your writing, which is all that you have control over. And as long as you're enjoying the writing, then that's like the best part, because you can't control all the other stuff. So I wish I didn't put so much pressure on myself to feel like I had to be, perfect in everything, and everything had to work out. I think I would have just focused more on me.
Yeah.
But I've learned. And so I'm back. I think I've recalibrated, and all of my energy is back into just focusing on the writing. And, thankfully I'm agented, and then I just send stuff off to my agent and then hide in a corner until he reads it.
All right. Fantastic. Well, you sort of suggested you're working on something now. What's coming out next after Vanishing Daughters?
I'm working on a historical horror novel that takes place in World War II. So right now I am really just involved in all things research. Well, I hope for you all to see that soon. So we'll see how it goes. But it's such a fascinating time period. In time. So there's just a lot of research right now.
Oh, no doubt. Well, maybe a year from now, when you've got all that worked out, we can have you back on the podcast to talk about that one. Which fairy tale will that involve?
Peter Pan.
Now I'm really intrigued.
Yes.
Did I say World War II? I said World War I. So it's World War I. So, so yeah. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Sounds fantastic. Hey, well, good luck with Vanishing Daughters, and thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. This was lovely. I appreciate your time.
Just a few parting words. Let me remind you that we are getting ever closer to the WriterCon cruise, which is May 31st to 7, going to Alaska, leaving from Seattle. And I want to emphasize that we have reserved a block of rooms and have gotten a great discount. I mean, a serious discount for people coming for WriterCon, for the writing classes on board, but it is not infinite. And when it runs out, it's gone. So if you're thinking about this, register now and take advantage of that discount. Plus, you're going to get 20 hours of writing instruction scheduled while the boat's at sea, not when you want to go off and see the ice caps melt or whatever. and we always have a great time and get a lot done. Lara, quick final Jeopardy. How many people who have come on that quiz would you guess are published now?
On the cruise?
Yeah. Is that what I said? That's what I
said. You said quiz, but...
on the cruise. This is quiz about the cruise.
Now published. Quite a few, with more in the pipeline, and some of them are starting to win awards for their work.
Ooh, good point. Yeah. Anyway, it's really worth doing if you're interested in bringing your writing up to the next level, not to mention seeing the beauty of Alaska. So
I'm so excited.
Google WriterCon. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And may I also mention that I got a new novel out. It's coming out next. It'll be yesterday when this book is released, when this podcast is released. I can't get anything right today, but it is Challengers of the Dust, Change of Pace for me, because it's set in 1935, Dust Bowl, Oklahoma. Two young men are forced to undertake an impossible mission, find the local bigwig's wayward daughter, which sends them on a cross-country trek during which they meet a lot of Depression-era people, including some famous and soon-to-be famous people. It's a change of pace, but it's a lot of fun, and especially if you're interested in history or that time period, the Depression, World War II, the period that literally transformed America in a good way. Here's your book, Challengers of the Dust, okay?
I think I heard that you had a pretty good editor for that, too.
Yeah, I have a pretty good editor on all of my works, and she's so good I made her a co-host on the podcast. So, and on that note, until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. All right? See you next time.